podcast.
No doubt. No doubt. I kind of agree. It's funny. Like, I used to watch a lot of Collider movie talk, but then I got tired of it, and I actually prefer Collider Live to that. You ever watch that?
No, I've never seen it.
It's pretty good, man. It's like old school schmoes in a lot of ways. They barely talk about movies on it, though, which is, it's weird for their brand because that's what they always did. Yeah, yeah. Like, that is their brand. Hey, I guess we're live. What's up, everybody? Thank you for stopping by. I'm Jeremy. Movies are terrible. What's up, Caleb Miles?
What is up, man? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. The hammering has ceased. I was just telling Caleb before we started recording. Actually, texted you about, 15 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And was like, hey, man, I don't know if we're going to be able to do this tonight. I sent him an audio recording of what I was fucking listening to. And it sounded like there were a couple people hammering on my ceiling. So I walked upstairs. I didn't even know my neighbors upstairs in the apartments moved out, but there's a couple guys in there just working away. Big language barrier. I didn't know what the fuck they were talking about. I don't think they knew what the fuck I was talking about, but they could tell by my tone of voice I was sick of hearing the hammering sound. So luckily, right before we went live, they finally stopped.
Yeah, that was like perfect timing. I thought we were gonna have to call it.
So you got people above you.
Yeah.
Does that shit drive you nuts, or do you have a pretty good sound barrier?
No, I mean, I hear walking every once in a while, but it's not bad.
Everybody, I swear to God, it's like they only let people with clubbed feet live above me. Fucking ever, dude. It's just dunk, 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 dunk. I'm like, God damn.
It's just fucking Krampus walking around above here.
Yeah, some hooves. Like, you could never sneak up on anybody or anything. You would suck at being a cat burglar.
My brother, like, has the heaviest footsteps I've ever seen. And I'm not like a light footstep. I'm a big man. It's I probably make some noise. But my older brother, it's fucking ridiculous how much noise that guy. Like, he's trying to, like, kick a hole in the fucking floor when he walks. Yeah.
Well, yeah, we got some movie headlines to talk about this evening. Actually, mostly just trailers to talk about. I mean, there's other shit going on, but like a couple of really good trailers dropped, or I guess we'll discuss whether or not they're good, but a couple of exciting, interesting trailers dropped over the past couple of days, so we're going to talk about those. And then Caleb brought up a good topic in regards to recent statements that Steven Spielberg has said about whether or not streaming movies should be eligible for Oscars, as well as some other shit. So we're going to get into that here just a moment. But before we do, what the Florida? Oh, dang it.
Wrong podcast.
Fucked up again. What have you been watching lately? You seen anything good over the past couple days?
I've seen a bunch of stuff, but I only want to talk about one thing because we haven't had an opportunity to talk about it.
Oh, God.
And that is Alita.
Oh, fuck. Here we go.
I fucking love this movie. I've seen it twice now.
Okay.
And I'm
IMAX 3D both times?
First time 3D, 2D. The second time, definitely IMAX 3D was the better of the two. Because it is such a visual feast, and I am obsessed. It got me to rewatch the anime, which is every bit as bad as I remembered it being.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's garbage. It's like unwatchable garbage. And then it's got me to read the manga, which the manga is definitely more episodic. You know, the story isn't self-contained. Like, there's one thing, then the motorball, then, they're very episodic.
Yeah.
So they did a good job, I think, marrying it. But this is probably my favorite, like, big budget, dumb blockbuster in years. I can't remember the last time I've watched a blockbuster that I just absolutely enjoyed.
So you're not always a 3D guy. In fact, I mean, you would say you probably don't like watching movies in 3D more than you do like watching movies in 3D.
I absolutely love 3D.
Okay.
So I'm the other way. Yeah, no, I used to have a 3D TV. I'm so mad that like no movie that they don't make 3D TVs anymore.
Yeah, it didn't really stick around. I only ever demoed it, but I'm not always a 3D fan. But that said, this is a movie that I really think the 3D is one of the biggest selling points of the movie. Similar to Avatar, like I think 3D works really good on some films, and I think James Cameron has really figured out how to fucking utilize that technology.
Yeah, this one 3D is great about it. The thing I liked about it, and this was a huge thing for me, it was the first time in a long time that I watched a blockbuster. I'm like, oh, this is like a big budget movie for adults. you know, like,
Sure.
and kids could watch this too, but like it wasn't a joke every 2 minutes. It wasn't trying to be everything for everyone. You know, there's people who are not gonna like this movie. They're not gonna dig the crazy cyberpunk weird shit, and that's fine. But it's kind of leans into that, and I'm obsessed with it.
I there are I think I come off negative on it because I'm less enthusiastic about it. To me, and I know that you'll take this is not in as positive as a way as I mean it, but I feel like it's very comparable to Ready Player One in a lot of ways.
I would actually agree with it. I'm like on a big budget level. It's like Ready Player One with story and character development.
Sure, yeah, I think character development as far as Alita. Alita was a fantastic character. I don't know if you can say the rest about other characters.
I would agree. She definitely carries the film. I think Ito's pretty good. I think the love interest is very uninteresting. You know,
Yeah.
and but his arc's kind of cool. But she makes it. The thing that's impressive is she is a very stereotypical anime archetype where she's the like cutesy kawaii, but then will also kick your ass.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? And they did that in a very realistic, where she is cute and charming and lovable, but also fierce and tough. And I thought they just absolutely nailed it. Now that being said, I it's a movie that I love, that I also understand. It's kind of my gripe that I have, like with a lot of people do with comic book movies, where they're like, "This movie's a masterpiece." I'm like, "No, it isn't." That's kind of how I feel about Alita. Like, it's not a masterpiece, but
You're
I
not saying it
absolutely
is. You
love it.
just loved. Yeah, you enjoyed the experience, and I can appreciate that. I definitely there were a lot of things that I liked in it. I am a huge Robert Rodriguez fan, and that bar scene is just very, very Robert Rodriguez.
The Dust Till Dawn scene,
Fuck
essentially.
yeah, or
Yeah.
Desperado, whatever. You know what I mean? There's a bar fight in every one of Rodriguez's movies, and I was like, fuck yeah. And then she rubbed that dog blood on her face, and I gotta ask you, were you like, that's badass, or were you like, that was kind of weird?
So it was one of those things I was like, oh, sweet, that's a callback to the anime, because I
Okay,
remembered that. Yeah.
all right.
I was like, that's from the anime.
I was like, did she just rub that dog's fucking blood on her face? What the
Oh,
fuck?
yeah, actually, that's kind of badass. I kind of liked it.
Oh shit. Nah. So what about the fact that it didn't get us to the destination, and the fact, do you think that this is a movie that's going to continue a franchise, or do you think they shot too big and underfell what they were hoping for?
I think there's a possibility, maybe if it makes its money overseas, that we'll get a second one. It's definitely what they set up for. You know, this is obviously not supposed to be one movie, but I, I'm not super hopeful that we'll get a sequel.
I'd like to see one. I definitely would like to see where this movie goes. I think it's a movie that has rewatchability. There are things that I thought were real fucking dumb about it, and then other things that I really to me it was kind of on par with Aquaman, where it's like I'm not even gonna sit here and try to defend it, but I like it. Like, it's fun, and that was my big takeaway from it. Dude, do you notice it was real obvious in this movie, the boyfriend, he's a fucking avatar for Robert Rodriguez, right? He dresses just like him.
He does. Now that you said it, like, he does look very Robert
He
Rodriguez.
just put a picture of them next to each other, and that kid is like the idealized version of what Robert Rodriguez it just is in real life. And then fucking Dr. Robotnik at the end, Edward Norton, he looked just like fucking James Cameron, dude.
He actually looks so. So that's the thing. Speaking of character designs, these characters look so similar to like the manga and the anime.
Sure.
Like, it's unreal how well they captured. Like, Ito looks identical. I mean, granted, he is Japanese in the comic, but in the manga, but he still looks like him. You
Yeah,
know,
there's
and
like
then,
no questioning who it is.
yeah, like as soon as you see him, it's um my thing is, I'm very curious to see after starting the manga where they're going to take this, because spoilers, she might become a jazz musician, but I think they're going to probably take that out of the next movie.
Damn, what doesn't this Mary Sue know how to do?
It's so, like, I love the manga, but it's so like just crazy Japanese
It's like whatever they
insanity.
want to fucking do with that
Yeah,
particular episode. That's
yeah.
dope. I respect it. I like anime. You know I do. I'm into that shit. So not all of it, but what I watch, I'm into. I watched Widows the other day. It's something that I've
Yeah.
just kind of been sitting on for a little bit. I was not enthusiastic on it by the trailers, and so Victoria had been asking about watching it. I knew Steve McQueen directed it, and I'd heard pretty good reviews, so I finally sat down and checked it out. Have you seen that?
I actually it was one of the ones I watched this week.
Oh yeah, nice.
Mhm.
Look at that. We
What
didn't even fucking coordinate this, and we were all over it, man. So what did you think about it?
it's a movie that there's some brilliant performances in. Mainly my takeaway was, so the reason I wanted to see this film, there's a scene with Daniel Kaluuya. How do you say his name?
Yeah, Kaluuya.
Kaluuya. But there's a scene where these guys are freestyling. I saw that clip and I
Oh
was like, okay, I'm
yeah.
on this movie. And he is the best part of this movie for me. Um, but it is boring as fuck.
Okay. Yeah, I get
Yep.
it. I get it. That scene you're talking about was badass. Like, Kaluuya definitely knows that. Like, he's putting on the intimidating character
Mhm.
like really thick, and seems like he's fucking eating it up. Which is, it's really hard not to enjoy watching his performance when it
Mhm.
seems like he's loving being a bad guy so much.
Yeah, because he's never, I don't think, really been able to flex that. Like
No.
he's always been like, and it's weird. I never thought of him as a villain, like ever. I couldn't even have pictured him. To me, he has such that like nice guy, maybe because of Get Out, but like he
Yeah.
has this like nice guy, like one of your best friend vibe. Like that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
the vibe he gives me. But seeing him as a villain, I was like, oh my God, he is brilliant as the bad guy.
I thought that Widows had some really potent shit in it. Like there were some things that it just scratched the surface on with local politics and fucking corruption in the government and class warfare and race and all of these things that like it just barely touched down on. And I think if it would have leaned more into the kind of political thriller instead of the heist movie, it would have been a stronger film to me, because I've seen heist movies so many fucking times. There's a twist at the end that feels pretty unearned. It's just like, well, okay, I guess this is the thing now, like you never gave me any inkling that this was a thing, but I guess it's a thing now. But one of my biggest takeaways is like Elizabeth Debicki is a 7 foot tall fucking goddess, dude. She is
She
so
is.
amazing.
I think she's like 6'4" or something like that, isn't she?
I don't know. She seems so gigantic compared
I
to the
think
rest
she's
of
like
those
my
women.
height almost,
No
like
doubt.
she's big. She's a big woman.
Yeah, definitely liked the characters in it. Like you said, I think there were some real good performances in it. Each of them are their own kind of well-defined characters without having to give you a whole shitload of backstory.
Yeah, to me, I kind of agree with what you said. If they would have explored some of these themes and those things that they touched on, it would have been a lot better. But I agree, it kind of just left me feeling generic by the end of it. And it's such a long movie that they had time to do that, but instead it's a lot of them just walking around doing kind of nothing for a big chunk
Yeah,
of the movie.
yeah.
And then at the end, they're like, "Oh shit, we need to wrap this up with a heist."
Yeah, I think it falls on the positive side for me, but like it's like a meh, you know what I mean? It's like I'm not gonna tell you you
It's
shouldn't watch
fine
it.
for me. It's like it's a good movie, but it's nothing that I like. I will never watch it again, but I don't hate it.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I'm with you. So there's this dude named Ben Wheatley, and I love Ben Wheatley's stuff. I would guess you would be one of the few people that I would think might know who he was, but he did a movie called A Field in England, which was a black and white movie, kind of took place in like the Pilgrim era, and all of these different religious people eat mushrooms and fucking go crazy on each other. He did one called Kill List, which was kind of a cult horror movie. He did one called the like the Vacationers or some shit. He's a British filmmaker.
I the only movie I've seen, which was not probably a good one, it looks like he did, but I've seen this, was the ABCs of Death.
Oh, he did a segment in that. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that's the only thing I've seen
I
of
don't know
his.
which one he did, but because there's so many shitty segments in that, 26 shitty movies. all at once. But okay, so he's a very specific style. He did Down Terrace also, which I think was his first movie. He's got this pulpy sensibility, really likes disturbing material. There is a little bit of dark satire and shit. Anyways, he made this movie recently called Free Fire. And it's got Charlotte Copley from the one Hardcore Henry that we've talked about. He's also in District 9 and Elysium. Great South African actor. It's got Cillian Murphy, who's the Irish guy that was in 28 Days Later. He plays Scarecrow. It's got Michael Smalley in it, who you would know from other Ben Wheatley movies. Brie Larson is kind of the star of it. So it's got a really strong cast. It all takes place in a warehouse, and it's about a gun deal gone wrong. And it starts as a free fire, and it just fucking spirals from there. So you heard something about it?
I saw the trailer, and this movie, I was like, what the hell is this? This looks amazing. And I totally forgot the name about it, but I know I remember the trailer vividly.
I think you'll have fun with it. It's not great. It's not great. It feels like, you know, a lot of directors tried to do the Quentin Tarantino thing, and this feels a lot like Reservoir Dogs in some ways, especially because it's all this one location, who's aligned with who, what's the real thing going on, and it's funny, but not like laugh out loud funny, and it's clever, but not super clever. It's essentially a fucking hour and a half shootout, the entire movie. You know, there's a 10 minutes of setup, and then the whole rest of the movie, it's them shooting at each other and yelling at each other from across the warehouse and shit. It's another one that, like, I'd recommend for style purposes and as like a Ben Wheatley completionist, but it could have been amazing, and it's really not.
There's some movies that I'm fine with like that. You know, not everything needs to be amazing. You know, it just as long as I'm having a good time with it and I actually enjoy it, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, like, sometimes just a diversion that, like, keeps your interest is good enough, especially, it's not like we have to pay money to watch I mean, you know, you pay your nominal monthly fee, but I think I've watched definitely my $10 worth on Netflix, Hulu, and Prime this month. I saw Three Identical Strangers, which you and I talked a little bit about on People Are Terrible. I don't guess you had a chance to check that shit out, did you?
No, I still haven't. I haven't even watched it. It's one of those things that I probably never will watch that I really want to see, but I just probably won't get around to it.
I put Three Identical Strangers and Dear Zachary and The Act of Killing are probably my three favorite documentaries ever. They're all really, real fucking interesting. Well, at least I think they are, because otherwise I wouldn't call them my favorite. They're my favorite documentaries. Real fucking boring. Real uninteresting.
One of my favorites of all time was, I forget the name of it, but it's the one about Batman, about how he was really like created by Bill Finger and about Bill Finger's life.
I hadn't seen that.
I cried by the end of it, you know, like it's brilliant. It's on Hulu. Right now it's called Batman and Bill. Batman and Bill is brilliant.
Oh yeah, I'll certainly be watching that. Bob Kane gets all the credit for creating him, but he was actually Bill Finger's. Bill Finger didn't create him, but he defined him. Everything about Batman.
Everything you like about Batman.
Yeah, right.
I remember during BVS, during the opening, this is how fucking nerdy I am. So during the opening, it says, based on the character created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger. And I'm so nerdy, I almost teared up at the beginning of the movie by seeing his name up there.
Yeah, man. He finally got his dues. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's a fucking shame with artists, man. Nobody gives a shit about them till they die.
Yep.
Oh, well. Yeah, so I've been watching more Game of Thrones. That's the other thing I've been doing, obviously, in preparation. Because Victoria was like, you know, the last season's coming up, and I don't even think I could tell you who all the characters are. And I'm like, I got you. Like, we're going to watch this, and anytime you want to pause, I'll do the director commentary shit on it. And she's just like, please don't.
She's like, no, we'll just watch this fucking thing.
Yeah. I'm going to pause this, and I'm going to tell you to shut the fuck up. and we're gonna continue to watch it.
I'm sure you do the thing sometimes that I do that I don't even mean to. Like you're watching with your wife, and then you throw the most random fucking fact about this movie that she doesn't give a shit about. She's just trying to watch a movie. She doesn't need to know who did the costumes and how they were tied to this other movie and someone died on set or whatever. She's like, I don't give a shit. I just want to watch a movie.
Bro, you just defined the reason why I started doing podcasts in the first place. She's like, enough already. Fine,
She's like,
I'm gonna go find strangers on the internet to talk to. Fuck you. Oh, shit. So anyways, yeah, I'm getting ready for Game of Thrones Season 8, and the trailer just now dropped, and Caleb and I have talked about this before, so this isn't exactly one for both of us to dive deep into, but I did want to just share a couple of quick thoughts on it. It's a relatively short little piece of footage, and I think what's good about it is it doesn't give really anything away. It gives us a lot of the calm before the storm, like hype moments. It opens up with Arya. She's obviously been injured on her head, and she's like running through what I believe to be the crypts of Winterfell, and she comes around the corner, and you can tell she's fucking terrified of whatever it is. But then it cuts to this really cool shot of Arya, and she's got dragon glass in her hand, and she says, "Death has many faces. I can't wait to see this one." And you know she's talking about the Night King, but I feel like they should have edited that the other way around, because it's like, don't act all confident now. When you see the Night King, you're gonna shit your pants and you're gonna fucking haul ass away, because it's horrifying. Anyways, so there's that of Arya going on, and then it cuts to like a bunch of these beloved characters that we know, and they're getting ready for battle. We see the whole infantry of the Unsullied lined up with all of our favorite characters on the front line. It just sets the atmosphere. There's a shot of Jon and Dany with Drogon, and what's the other one's name? Is Viserys? I think Viserys is the other one alive, but they're like fucking huge, but you can see Drogon's like twice as big as the other one. And I'm fucking stoked, dude. I cannot wait to see. Bran has a little line where he says, everything that's happened, it's happened for a reason. You're here because it's your destiny, or you're supposed to be. And it's just, it's got me super excited. I think we're about 2 months out, and I cannot fucking wait to be disappointed when the series doesn't end the way that I want it to.
As someone who's never seen an episode of Game of Thrones, and so I was kind of just like lost the whole time, I did find it funny. You're like, here's this person and this person, all these weird names, and the Night King, and then there's Jon and Dany. It's like, oh, where the fuck did Jon and Dany come from?
Yeah, they're like Bill and Ted. They travel through fucking time.
Like, wow, like here's Dragon and Night King and Jon and Dany fucking chilling.
Yeah, well, for context, Dany is Daenerys, so her name's a little more weird. Jon's name is Jon, just straight up.
Okay.
But yeah, dude, I'm stoked. I don't guess you would have had any reason to watch the trailer.
I watched it. I had no idea what the fuck I was watching. I just watched it because you sent it to me, and I was like, I have no idea what I'm looking at.
Special effects look good, right? The dragons look fucking solid.
Like, it looks like they threw money at it, which is
100%, 100%. All right, well, speaking of fucking throwing money at big, gigantic dragon-style creatures, let's talk about the images from Godzilla King of the Monsters. They were just now released via some fucking trash magazine. Let's see who it was this time. Well, I'm looking at it on Collider.
Yeah, I think it was Collider is where the article I saw it on.
Slash film, maybe. A total film is what all the watermarks say. But yes, I sent the article via Collider, and it's not a lot that the trailers didn't give away. There's a shot here at the top. Well, I'll go ahead and bring them up so we can talk about these real quick here. Good use of air time.
Time there looking at them.
Okay, so the top shot, we've got Godzilla and Ghidorah about to engage in battle. That looks like this. I think they're coming from the other way in that shot in the trailer, where Godzilla's running one way and Ghidorah's running the other.
My thing that I noticed from looking at these is the color grading is awesome in this movie already.
Oh, good call. Very good point. I think the 2014 was very undersaturated, a lot of real brown and fucking gray tones to it. And yeah, looking at these images, now that you say that, we've got some interesting color grading going on.
Yeah, I love stuff like that. That's one of those weird things that I notice in a movie right away. That I mean, there's some damn near neon colors in here.
Well, and they're not going like bright with it, but they're able to
Mm-mm.
really bring out the colors even in the darkness, which is it's cool, and it's still distinctly different from Pacific Rim, even though you can kind of see it more in this one than in the 2014 version.
Who's directing this one? Because it's not the same director, is it?
No, it's Doherty,
Oh, okay.
Mike Doherty, that directed Trick or Treat and Krampus.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because I was gonna say, definitely, I think tonally he'll get more Godzilla. As someone who the last movie I liked it, because it's I cannot remember his name, the director of Monsters. I absolutely love Monsters. I think it's a brilliant film. This was very similar, which maybe just me with my own expectations. That wasn't really what I wanted out of Godzilla. So
Sure.
this looks more like Godzilla.
Yeah, I agree. The guy's name is Gareth Evans, and I really did enjoy the first film, but it was more from an aesthetic and a design perspective, like because the story itself was not super strong. I justified it in like, well, the human characters existed just to show the futility of humans standing up against a force of nature like this, because they really don't do anything to move the plot forward. They're just like observers when it all happens, which, you know, maybe was by design, but it wasn't all that interesting. Especially when there's these giant kaijus fighting outside and we're constantly cutting away for those boring ass characters. But my biggest takeaway, I mean, I love the 2014 Godzilla design. They've only slightly tweaked
Mhm.
it this time, but dude, Ghidorah looks so cool this time around.
Yeah, I agree. That is a good. All the designs, like they just tweaked them just enough to where they're new and they're fresh, but they're still very true to the original.
Yeah, yeah. There's no question about who they are, which is really cool. I like the way Rodan looks. I think Mothra is. They've nailed it with the designs. I'm interested to see the. I think I've mentioned this to you before. I'm just interested to see how you can go back to a Kong versus Godzilla after you've pulled out all of the most iconic fucking Toho kaiju in the previous movie.
Yeah, I agree. It seems like they should have done King Kong versus Godzilla first
Mm-hmm.
and then built the King of the Monsters. This is kind of a weird jump.
Because yeah, it would have been cool to see. I mean, it would have been kind of BVS, but to see Kong and Godzilla have to team up against Ghidorah at the end, like, you know, with maybe even with Mothra, like they're the only ones that can stop it. It would just give Kong a little bit more, I
Which
guess,
talk about a
cred.
good character design, man. That Kong version is awesome.
Yeah, it is similar to like what you were just talking about, it being true to the originals. Like it stands upright like the 1970s
Mhm.
remake of King Kong, as opposed to like Peter Jackson's was a straight up fucking gorilla, but King Kong looks more like a monster in this new one, which I like.
It was more like, yeah, King Kong lives type of thing, like
Yes,
that sort of vibe, which I like better.
I think it's hilarious that just the idea of Kong being able to get anywhere near Godzilla, it's ridiculous.
Oh no, Godzilla would just blow him away and destroy this giant ape.
It's just like his hair's flammable. If he
Yeah,
didn't lose, he would be so fucking busted looking afterwards.
yeah, no,
Like,
there's no way he
no.
could win.
No, Godzilla's got thumbs. I'm looking at the pictures right now. That means King Kong ain't got shit on me. So
Godzilla
yeah.
got thumbs. Is that what your excuse?
Oh, bro, yes, yes. When you got opposable fingers, you've got the proverbial upper hand. You can hold
King
shit.
Kong is an ape. Of course, he got opposable thumbs.
No, I no, 100%. But that's what gives him the edge over King Kong or Godzilla. And I'm looking at
Oh,
this picture, and I
okay.
think he might not, though. He might not have opposable thumbs. But if he does, if he can indeed grab an oil tanker and use it like a baseball bat, like those
If
fucking robots did in Pacific Rim,
then he can win.
yeah, he
Which
wouldn't even need
Pacific
it.
Rim is the superior Godzilla remake. I stand by.
I'm sorry you feel that way.
It's the truth. It's true to Godzilla. It's ridiculous, campy, garbage filmmaking that I love.
Swear to Godzilla? Do you fucking
Yeah,
swear to Godzilla?
swear to Godzilla.
All right, man. when you do that. So I sent you a link to the International Dark Phoenix trailer, but there's been two different trailers. Did you watch the U.S. version of it before you saw the International, or is the
I watched
International the first?
the US, but I avoided actually when you sent me that because you said it had blatant spoilers in it.
No. Okay, so the US one is the one with the blatant
Oh,
spoilers, and
okay.
the
I've seen that
headline
one.
says this one is a better trailer for avoiding
Oh, so I
blatant
saw the
spoilers.
blatant spoilers. That's why I was like, I'm not watching this fucking thing, you asshole.
You already saw the blatant spoilers.
Oh,
So if you guys have seen the trailer, there's a shot. If you don't want to know and you haven't seen the trailer, skip ahead 2 minutes. But in the American trailer, there's a shot where Mystique is trying to plead with Jean and say, Jean, don't do it. We're family. We love you. And Jean's like, stop it. Fucking cut it out. And then she freaks out and blows Mystique back 100 feet. She smacks into something, and then cut to a funeral, and it's pouring rain, and everybody's crying. It's like, well, clearly Jean Grey just now killed Mystique. And that's probably the kickoff point of the movie.
do you think she did, or you think that they're just doing that to fuck with you, and then it's not even her that she killed?
That is 100% possible. I wouldn't put it past them, but it seems like the fact that they modified it for the international trailer makes me even more suspicious because there
Which,
was a public outcry.
if they kill Mystique, I mean, I don't think anyone's gonna be too upset about that.
No, dude, Jennifer Lawrence has been like, fucking kill me since after First
She
Class, I'm sure.
she's like Charlton Heston with Planet of the Apes, where he like just wanted to die. He's like, end this fucking franchise. He
Yes.
hated it.
Yeah, or Harrison Ford in Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, please, just I'm done with this shit.
Can I not fucking spend 4 hours in a chair to get painted blue? Her makeup looks cheap in this one, but aside from that, what do you think about the trailer? Like, do you like the version of the movie?
I mean, it just as someone who's I stand by, like I think they are better than most of the MCU films. They're still not wonderful films, and they're more hit or miss. Like they're not like as consistently one level of good or bad depending on how you think of
Right.
MCU. But this, it just it looks like another X-Men movie. Like I want to be excited for it, but I'm really not.
It does. It just looks like another X-Men movie. It's like they are doing. They might as not even be a series. They're just all an X-Men movie, which is cool because, I mean, it's different than the real serialized approach. And obviously there is narrative connectivity between all of them or whatever. But it's like they just keep retrying to do the quintessential X-Men movie, and they still haven't fucking nailed it yet. I think they did great with Deadpool. I think they did great with Logan, but I don't think there's been an X-Men movie that I loved yet. And that's just somebody who loves this series.
First Class, I love, and I
Very good
love
movie.
Days of Future Past. Like, absolutely love it.
Okay. I thought both those were good, and I really did. I don't know what it would take for me to be like, all right, that's the X-Men movie that I wanted. But you and I both, we've talked about it before, and for people who may be tuning in for the first time, both of us are huge X-Men fans, and actually that's kind of was my gateway into comic books. So I do feel like maybe I have that kind of Star Wars fan syndrome where I feel a little bit of like ownership over what I want to see the X-Men be, and they just haven't quite been there
I feel
yet.
like it's the thing that I kind of have with MCU in general. You know, I think I'm
Sure.
too big of a fan to enjoy it.
I think that Days of Future Past is good. First Class is my favorite of all of them, and it is really close to being good, but it lacks a couple of those 90s X-Men characters that I'm such a big fan of.
You want that Gambit Rogue romance.
I do, and Nightcrawler would have helped, and if they would have swapped the Azrael or whatever out of it, given another henchman, and then let Nightcrawler, even though that wouldn't have been true to the comics. But yeah, I love those 90s characters that you just now mentioned. So I think this is the best arc. This is the best, I think, cast. I think this one is the best looking X-Men interpretation of Phoenix yet, but I've already heard it's already got a funk on it.
Yeah, I would agree. Like because we already saw Phoenix again, and the timeline is just so fucked up with
Yeah.
X-Men. It's just like I don't know who is what anymore. I wish that they would have committed and made First Class a reboot instead of a prequel. And then we could have just rebooted it and it would have been fine. But then they were like, fuck, man, we really like Logan. So we got to figure out a way to make these the same universe.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Yeah.
And I did, man, Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen, that's inspired casting. I can't take that away from those movies. I don't know. It's just been tough to crack the code. I hope this is the one. I think that it's interesting to see them kind of switch the core relationship from Charles and Mystique, which has been heavily established in the past several movies, to now all of a sudden it's Charles and Jean, which is much more true to the comic books.
Yeah, I hate the whole Mystique's a good person bullshit. It barely bothers me. Just leave her as an awful villain.
And I'm sorry, if that little projectile blast is going to kill Mystique, she's not a good mutant. I mean, she might be a good mutant, but she's a wuss.
She's not very tough. She never has. That's why she uses guns in the comics.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point. All right, well, we won't spend too much more time on that. Let's talk about another. It's funny because this next film that we're talking about, Brightburn, it's getting a lot of that, like, what if a superhero was bad? What if we had a dark Superman? And it's like, man, Dark Phoenix is pretty much it's kind of the same fucking deal, right? But anyways, this one is a very specific take, like one of those high concept films. What if Superman were a super villain, and what if he landed in this small rural town, and once he learned about his abilities and his powers, he used them for bad? It's written by the Gunn brothers that aren't James Gunn, Sean and John.
Mark?
Yeah, Mark. And it's directed by some guy. I don't know who he is. Maybe I should look in a second. But it looks pretty fucking crazy, man. I like the tone of it. What do you think?
I think it's cool. I think it's really cool how they really leaned into like their shots from Man of Steel, like straight up shots from it.
Dialogue that's so close too.
Yeah, like they were like almost borderline parodying Man of Steel, and like visually, it kind of looks like Man of Steel, like the cinematography in it, which to me is a good thing. And whether people how they feel about Zack Snyder on a visual level, I think cinematography, and he always comes correct with that. So it's really cool. I like the concept. I'm excited. This trailer showed a little bit more than the teaser, but I was so sold on the teaser that I'm like, what? Like, I don't care what the next trailer looks like. I'm going to see it.
So the kid's name is Brandon Breyer. Very classic alliteration for comic book characters. Stan Lee. Yeah, absolutely. And then Brightburn is also BB, which is his cool little logo. The hand in the mower scene where he like fucking is kind of testing out his invulnerability, and he sticks his hand in there and he realizes he's like not susceptible to pain, and he kind of smiles. That's when you're like, oh shit, this isn't gonna go good. And then when those fluorescent lights explode and that teacher gets a shard of glass straight through her pupil and fucking pulls it out, that was pretty gnarly.
Yeah, it's cool to see it's cool to see something done with the superhero genre, a genre that I am fucking so sick of that I can't stand it, to something interesting to be coming out of there, because I felt like at the beginning, in the inception of superhero movies, not the very inception, but like the resurgence, we were taking some risk and doing some cool things, and now we're not. And so it's nice to see something, even though it's not like an actual character, but still something that's interesting. Kind of the same thing way like Chronicle was an interesting take on the superhero genre.
And there is probably comparisons to be made between the two of those. Obviously, Chronicle had the found footage element to it, but dude, the mask and the costume, that mask is scary as fuck. I don't know who came up with that nightmare mask, but it is it's great terrifying looking. Yeah, it is. That shot where a kid from Breaking Bad sees him in front of the headlights, and then he cuts him off and turns back on. The kid's like hovering 2 feet above the ground. And Elizabeth Banks says, I think the line that really embodies what the whole movie's about, and I'm paraphrasing here, but she's like, no matter what you've done, there's still good inside you. And that's just like what every mother thinks about their fucking psychotic sociopath. It's like we need to talk about Kevin if he was Superman.
Yeah, I love stuff like this. I just, because as much as I bitch about superheroes, it's just cool to see stuff like you just brought up Glass, this type of thing, that there is still some creativity left in the to pull out of this genre.
So, me and you have talked about Hereditary before. You know, I'm a huge fan of it. I saw somebody post something about, is Midsommer going to be like Hereditary is overhyped or some shit like that, overrated or something like that. I watched the trailer for it as somebody who, like I said, was a huge fan of Hereditary. I didn't exactly know what to expect. But, you know, I got thoughts on it. But I think I
I'm curious
started with my thoughts last time. What did you think
no,
about it?
I'm curious to see. As someone who's a fan, I want to hear yours first.
Okay, so Ari Aster, this is only his sophomore film. He's never made a feature length prior to Hereditary. He's got one called like Meet the Robinsons or some shit that sounds extremely fascinating. It's a short film. Anyways, as a sophomore effort, I was really curious to see what he would do next, and it doesn't seem like he's really pushed himself out of what we expect from him. This is definitely a 1970s inspired cult movie, which Hereditary kind of in a nutshell was that, if you look at it a simple way. I think Midsommer has elements of the more recently Apostle, but Wicker Man before that, that movie Kill List that I mentioned by Ben Wheatley. So we've seen a lot of this kind of pagan cult ritual. They all go off to some pagan fire fest that happens every 90 years, and things aren't what they appear to be. I think that one of my favorite things about it, talk about color grading, is I think they're using a really interesting pastel palette, which you never see in horror movies. This idea of spring and life and all of this and florals and stuff is never associated with horror, so I think it's kind of interesting.
So my take on it is, holy shit, this looks absolutely fucking brilliant.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Granted, that's how I felt about the Hereditary trailer too. So, you know, I don't know, but I'm one of these people. I think it's weird to, yeah, there's directors that you like more or less, but I kind of, when I go into a new movie, whatever, especially only on a sophomore film, but whatever they made for leaves my mind.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think it looks great. I think it's interesting to play a horror film that is completely in the light. I think that's just something that you don't really see, which to me, there's that scene where like, I think it's like someone's like either deformed or really beaten up, but they have like a swollen face.
Yeah, it looks like some shit off Hills Have Eyes.
Yeah, and just something about seeing that in natural, well, even natural, quote unquote, natural lighting is a lot more terrifying than it being in the dark corners, just like being so upfront with it, that I think, again, another thing that I'm excited about, it's taking something in a genre that, even though I love horror, it's very rarely that you get stuff that's truly original. And it's nice to see someone who is taking it and playing it completely differently. I love the symmetry that he did, which he also did in Hereditary. It's almost like Wes Anderson-esque, like if Wes Anderson did a horror film. And that I'm sold. I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, you actually brought up a couple of interesting things that I didn't even take into consideration, and the fact that the whole thing takes place in light. I'd imagine that was probably a decision. Like, I'm going to make a horror movie and I'm going to subvert all of those things hidden and obscured and shadows, and I'm just going to present it as it is. And I think one of the most effective and disturbing things I've seen in a trailer in quite some time is all of that wailing and moaning behind the door. You don't see shit. You just see that girl peek through the hole and you have no idea what she's seeing, but you just know it is something fucking bad going on behind that door.
I'm super excited. Even though I ripped into Hereditary, I actually think he's a really good director. I think there's a lot of potential. That movie, kind of how I felt like with Get Out. I mean, I like Get Out more than Hereditary, but like Get Out was a movie that didn't work for me. But Jordan Peele, I left there going, man, I can't wait to see what Jordan Peele does next. That's kind of how I feel with, was it Ari Aster? Is that the name?
Yeah.
Yeah. I had the same thing with Hereditary. I was like, ooh, except for Hereditary, I really disliked. I was like, oh, I hate this movie. Can't wait to see what he does next, because I do think he has value.
Us is another one, sophomore effort from Jordan Peele, that, man, the trailer is really moving the needle for me.
Good, man. That trailer is good.
I would say, to me and my sensibilities, it looks twice as interesting as Get Out did by the trailer because I like more visceral horror, and it was obvious that Get Out was not that kind of horror movie. It wasn't a violent, shocking, disturbed. I mean, there was of course that in it, but it wasn't like unsettling or upsetting in the same way that more visceral horror movies are.
Well, and then Us to me looks like they toned down the comedy quite a bit.
Yes, the good point.
Get Out was good, but that was one of my biggest problems. I think I went in wanting, I would put Get Out in like a horror comedy almost genre, like it's right there.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's really what I wanted out of it, especially being a comedian directing. I was like, oh, he's going to give us horror. But that being said, I think Get Out is beautifully directed. There are some amazing shots. There's some amazing performances. Can't wait to see what he does with Us.
All right, guys. So we've talked about Godzilla, Dark Phoenix, Brightburn, and Midsommer. Let us know what you think about any of those movies down in the comments section. Which you looking forward to the most? Which ones do you want to hear us talk about more? Because these aren't coming out for a little while. So let us know your thoughts down in the comments section. And before we wrap this thing up, we want to talk for a little bit with you guys about something that has been being discussed for the past week or so, but there's been statements made by this gentleman even months before that. So, Caleb, why don't you catch us up with what's going on here with Mr. Spielberg?
So, essentially, Steven Spielberg is just not... Yeah, that's essentially what it is. He's not happy with Netflix movies winning Oscars. Essentially, is kind of the short of it. He thinks that they're more akin to
made
TV
for
movies,
TV movies.
Yeah. Let's see. Do I have a quote here? I'm looking for the...
Les Spielberg firmly believes that Netflix and other companies that release their movies on streaming platforms at the same time they show in theaters should be barred from Academy Awards consideration. He's reportedly looking in to use his position on the Academy's Board of Governors to push for rule changes. Spielberg hasn't publicly explained his position, but his past remarks provide a window into his thinking. And then it goes on to say what you just now, the quote that you gave. So, I mean, is he wrong?
Yes, he's 100% wrong. That's how I feel about it.
My first initial thoughts are, what about if you're not making movies for television? Because Netflix can be viewed on your TV or it can be viewed on your computer. It's not like network television. It's a different fucking thing. So right off the bat, that's one of the things that I find flawed about his logic is I think he's misqualifying what streaming services do.
Well, and then to me, that's like saying, well, I can watch Ready Player One on DVD. That's on my TV. Therefore, it's a TV movie. Like, it's literally that logic, you know?
Yeah.
Like, no, that's not how it works.
And, I mean, so the thing is, Marvel and Warner Brothers and Pixar and all them, they're a blessing and a curse. I always bitch about not having more choices and not having more options in the movie theaters and get tired of remakes and all this stuff. But those are the things that are keeping fucking movie theaters opened so that these studios can make the more prestigious low budget films and put them out on Netflix because maybe they wouldn't be able to afford distributors. Like one of our favorite movies that was either 2017 or 2018, Annihilation, that was this weird situation where it was intended to be put out in the theaters. The distributors didn't have faith in it because he wasn't willing to take the fucking studio notes and compromise his vision. So it ended up going on to Netflix, but then there was like a theatrical release also. It gets a little bit complicated.
I think the theatrical release was first, then it went to Netflix in the UK because they didn't want to do it. So like that's a perfect example. That's a theatrical movie and a Netflix release. So should that not be eligible? Or does it deserve like a half point?
Right.
You know what I mean? Well, my thing too is, and this is maybe even weird, really, even if a TV movie is the best movie you've ever seen, does it really? I mean, to me, the Oscars is about cinema. And I don't understand why the screen you watch it on is the determining factor. If a movie is made for TV and it's the best movie I've ever seen, then it deserves all the recognition in the world, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
That's just kind of how I feel.
It's like if all things were equal, then Stephen King's Langoliers would be on the same caliber as Roma or some shit, and that's just not the case. It's like just because it's made for a certain medium doesn't really denigrate the quality of it. And as you just now said, and this is worth driving home, is that sometimes movies are made with the intention of putting them out into the theaters, and then the distributors drop the ball on them or somehow interfere with them even being able to do it. So there's really no difference between a movie that's made for X and a movie that's made for Y. It does go on to say in the article that this puts him at odds with other filmmakers and talent who maintain that Netflix has become a vital force in movie making, providing a platform and resources for directors and talent that big studios aren't offering. The business has changed since Spielberg came of age as a director in the 70s. The major studios are making fewer films, preferring to devote resources to comic book movies and franchise fare at the expense of adult dramas that Oscars typically reward. So that kind of touches on what I was just now saying. Obviously, the whole structure of filmmaking has changed since the 1970s. And while I respect Steven Spielberg, I would say he is pound for pound probably the greatest director of all time. I think there could be an argument made for Takashi Miike also from Japan. But point is, Steven Spielberg's prolific. His movies are beloved by audiences all over the world. And it seems that he's connected with people on an emotional level in a way that few filmmakers are able to. So I've got nothing but love for Steven Spielberg. But it does seem like his views on this particular subject are a little archaic.
It's just weird to me. So a indie film can be made with no budget, get a limited theatrical release, and it's deserving of an Oscar nomination. But a movie with not that budget matters, because I think sometimes bigger budget make movies worse. But a movie. So okay, let's just take the example of two side by side. So an indie film that's made by a crew of 50 people. There's two indie films. One gets a limited release for a month in a theater in small art house theaters, so that can get an Academy Award. But the other one goes straight to Netflix, gets seen by way more people, and is bigger. But that doesn't, because the screen is on. I feel like he has a very antiquated view of what cinema is and what it's changing. The movie theaters are dying. They're going the way of the dinosaur. I hate it. It sucks. I love seeing it on a big screen. They're going to be very niche in 15 years. You know, they're not going to be.
You think that the major chains are going to have shut down similar to what Blockbuster did, and they're going to be more of an event? How?
So I think they're going to be more the same way as there will be theaters. You know, they will probably be higher tickets to get into, and they will play shit that's already coming out to stream the same day as you can, but you go because you wanna see it. Damn. It's like going to a play or something. I think that's clearly the way theaters are going, unless they figure out the subscription model. Then that could save them. But if they don't, which I don't think they're close to cracking it, I think theaters are going to go the way of the drive-in.
I don't like that at all.
It sucks. It's horrible, but I think it's the way it's going. And honestly, I know you say big budget movies are keeping theaters afloat. I actually think they're kind of killing them, because all that movies theaters are seeing now is something you go to see a big budget IMAX movie. That's all that people want to see. So now we fill up movies with these big budget movies, all the screens. Well, it sucked up all the oxygen in the room for middle tier movies.
Oh yeah.
So now a movie comes out in a mid tier and no one sees it, which hurts the theater. So I feel like big budget superhero movies, ironically, are probably the thing directly that's destroying theaters.
So in this theory, if we were to pull all of the big tentpole movie theaters out of there and leave in movies like the ones with The Rock and Kevin Hart, or like your Jumanjis and stuff like that, do you think that there would still be people enthusiastic enough about those kind of 50 to let's say 35 to $90 million budget movies that are almost counter programming to the superhero stuff? Do you think if they weren't counter programming that they would still succeed?
I think, I think they would succeed. But I think honestly, I think we're too far past that point to where like the die's been cast. movie theaters are going. They're only going to be big budget tentpole movies, and then eventually Marvel movies are going to go straight to Disney's streaming service. And if you want to catch it in theater, you can.
So back in the day, and I'm speaking on this as somebody who I probably shouldn't be because I'm not super educated about it, but back in the golden age of Hollywood, studios were responsible for everything in a film from the top to the bottom. That means they were making them, they were producing them, they were distributing them, and all the way down the line. But what happened is the power got too consolidated, so theaters companies split up into smaller entities. Well, it seems like now with Disney reacquiring everything, that it's starting to stack up in this thing where Disney's controlling their own distribution, and all of these, everything is done by this one entity. And I think that is also responsible for pushing a lot of these movies out. And I think it would further cause more of that kind of issue if people knew that their films that were being made for these smaller platforms were not going to ever get the prestige recognition, because you're not going to get, you're not going to find a $5 million movie that premiered at Sundance that distributors are going to come in and say, I'm going to put this fucking movie on 2,000 screens. It's always going to be the A24s. It's always going to be the Blumhouse that are like, we'll take a chance. There's a built-in audience for this thing. We'll put it out in 1,500 screens and we're going to make our money back fast. But like a movie like Tangerine or a movie like Moonlight, the more theaters you put them in, the more money it's going to lose.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, there's a lot of things where the streaming model just makes more sense. And to me, I feel like essentially, this may not be his comments, but essentially it feels like he's saying, well, these movies just don't have value on the level of it's bullshit gatekeeper shit that I hate. It's the same people who say, oh, well, that's not real news. And now you see people like Philip DeFranco who are kicking ass in views compared to, and Joe Rogan, to quote unquote real news. They're not on TV, but does that mean they have less value? Should movie critics, like, not that we're critics, we're more just podcasters, but like a movie critic who does it strictly on YouTube, do they have less value than someone who does it for a newspaper?
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, yes, no,
just kidding.
I don't know. You know what I mean? I feel like sometimes the gatekeeper bullshit is just gets a little old. It comes off as the old guard just getting mad that things are changing.
I feel like as society changes and evolves, we tend to do that to a lot of our most beloved directors. Like I think about George Lucas first, then I think about James Cameron more recently, and how like he's just kind of talking like an old, out of touch dude at this point, and it's like he's like 75 years old. The man has accomplished so much that he's said some dumb shit. He said some things that did feel out of touch. Steven Spielberg, he's done the same thing, and it's like eventually we're all gonna age out of having our 100%. Finger on the pulse of what's going on with the fucking kids,
And like you said, Steven Spielberg is, one of the greatest directors of all time. I mean, he's not one of my personal favorites, but I understand the cultural significance he's had.
Right.
Like there's no denying some of the movies that he's made that have captured the heart of people. I mean, just you could look, like you said, his catalog, there's some misses in it, but overall, most of his stuff is commercially successful. So I would never want to take that away from him, but I don't know. I feel like it comes off as someone kind of throwing a temper tantrum to me. Like, oh, Romo's winning awards.
Yeah, not Ready Player One. Ready Player One didn't get nominated for Best Picture this year.
That's how it kind of comes off to me. You know what I mean? And that was the thing too that cracked me up, is like, Ready Player One is like a B-tier Netflix movie. Like it really is. It's just really big budget.
Gorgeous looking movie, great set pieces, really good CG. It did not, and all I want from a Steven Spielberg movie is to feel like a kid. That's always been my favorite thing about Spielberg movies, is his ability to be able to connect with young people in a way that felt authentic and organic, and he did it so well in the late 70s and the early 80s. but I feel like he's kind of aged out of it. He wasn't able to give us these young millennial-esque characters that were so connected to nostalgia and gaming and all of these things. It just didn't feel like he understood kids today as much as he did back then in the 80s. But I don't know, man. When I say that Steven Spielberg it's like the greatest American director, it's almost like it's stepping outside of myself and my own preference and just saying, like, as a kid who was born in the 80s and grew up in the 90s, like, there was nobody else even on that level that was making commercially successful movies that just people fucking loved them, you know?
Oh, I agree. He's probably the greatest like family film director.
Yeah,
of
that's
all
a good way of saying it.
You know, like he for my sensibilities, he's hit or miss. You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah, of course.
but I can't take away like he is the pinnacle of family / kids films. Like he's made that his whole legacy. I mean, he's done other things, you know, of course, adult films. I'm not saying that, but like that, like you said, is what he's known for, you know. And even didn't he do Adventures of Tintin? Didn't he direct
Him
that
and
as
Peter
well?
Jackson, yeah.
Yeah, that was a great like family movie. I love that movie.
That's
You
all
know,
right.
that was like,
Well, before
well,
we wrap this up, we just not. I got a curious question for you. This is gonna be tough on the spot, but if Steven Spielberg is the greatest like family film director, who's the best horror film director?
the best horror film director. So my personal bias, and I know this is not accurate, but I would have to. So realistically, John Carpenter, easy.
Good answer.
But my personal is just because of my own bias, and is George J. Romero, just because I love Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead and Land of the Dead so much. But he hasn't done anything else besides that. But that's like my first go-to. But it's John Carpenter for me.
Damn, Carpenter is a great choice, and he's actually works in a couple different genres. I want. Man, I want to say Roman Polanski so bad. I think he is really fucking good. I want to say Stanley Kubrick, but he doesn't have enough movies squarely in the horror genre. Best director in the horror genre. David Cronenberg's really good, but his shit's more science fiction. I think I got to go John Carpenter. I think I got to go with you on John Carpenter.
He's like the Spielberg of horror, you know?
Science
like
fiction.
So science fiction, that is a hard one. Ridley Scott, maybe?
Good answer.
No, I don't know. You know?
Cameron's pretty strong.
That's what I was going to say. Like, Cameron's another one that I more kind of like a Spielberg for me. I respect more than I like a lot of his movies. I mean, I like some of his stuff, but like I'm not as encapsulated by it as enthusiastic about it as most people are. But I mean, you might have to. Cameron might be the right choice there.
I say give it 5 years, but I say Denis Villeneuve might be the guy to beat.
Denis Villeneuve, yeah, I would agree with this. Like currently, he's probably my favorite. He reminds me of why can't I think of his name? You just said it. The guy who does 2001. You know,
yeah, Ridley Scott.
Like that, but like the new version. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes, definitely.
Like just does some weird shit. Just does, you know, like. Yeah, Denis Villeneuve is probably 5 years from now.
Okay, what else do we got? Comedy directors?
Oh God. You know who honestly I kind of feel like is a he ruled the world for a while. What the hell he directed? He directed Knocked Up and all of those.
Oh, Judd Apatow.
Yeah, like he kind of ran the world for a while. He's one of the first people that comes into my head, but I don't know if he's the greatest.
Yeah, right off the top of my head, I would have probably said Woody Allen, but that's not my preference. That's just what other people would say. I definitely agree with you more. I wouldn't have even thought about it.
Yeah, like John Apatow. And then what other genres? Is there a fantasy one? I don't know if there is.
Fantasy? I mean, obviously we've got Peter Jackson has got it. I mean, there's George Lucas, there's Peter Jackson. George Lucas, Peter Jackson.
You know who pops into my head, and he's not a director, but this just shows you how much influence he's had. Is Ray Harryhausen is the first person that popped in my head.
Oh yeah, we still got to do the creature effects and creature design episode sometime in the future because yeah, dude, Harryhausen, that's my shit. Clash of the Titans, Jason and the Argonauts.
All of it, brilliant.
Yeah. So for fantasy, I have to say Peter Jackson over fucking George Lucas.
Willow? No, I mean, no,
that's Zemeckis.
Is that Zemeckis? Or did
Maybe
he write
it's. I don't want to swear.
He directed it. I thought that was his follow-up, but maybe I'm wrong.
It was Lucasfilm for sure.
Maybe that's what I was thinking.
Ron Howard. By Ron Howard. What did I say? Zemeckis? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, those guys did some stuff. Fantasy. I guess that's kind of it. Drama.
Ooh, that's
a broad one. Yeah. Okay. So what about crime? Crime movies.
Scorsese.
Scorsese over Tarantino, huh?
Yeah, I probably would. Like, for me, Tarantino is the pinnacle. He's probably pound for pound my favorite director of all time. But, I would have to say Scorsese, like, is who pops into my head instantly.
Damn that, yeah, those guys. Same deal. I'd say Tarantino's probably my favorite director, pound for pound. It's real hard to sleep on Scorsese. I mean, Goodfellas is obviously one of the greatest movies of all time. Oh man, I gotta go with Quentin Tarantino on this one.
Especially like Mob specifically, of course. Yeah. Scorsese. Yeah, I have to go Scorsese, even though personally Tarantino is, like I said, he's probably my favorite director of all time. But Scorsese, man, like he's another one that is just culturally like took over the world for a while.
Well, we said it. It's now in stone. We forever gotta fucking live with the choices that we have made on tonight's show. Change. No, your opinion's your opinion, fuckface. It can't evolve.
No, you can't. Not in 2019. You got to just make sure you have the same opinion for the rest of your life.
Otherwise, you're a hypocrite. Yeah. Thank you guys for stopping by to check this out. To participate in the conversation about some of your favorite directors. I think that was actually kind of a fun little exercise. It made me just sit there and think about who directed what kind of genres of movies. And a lot of them do kind of stay in their lane, don't they?
Yeah, it's very much like there are those people who jump between genres, but... overall, I would say people stay in their lane. Superheroes. Before we go.
Oh,
that's superhero director, because that's the huge genre.
The Russo brothers.
I could see that culturally. I personally do not like any of this man's work, except for Firefly. But I would say Joss Whedon culturally.
Yeah, absolutely. And then your personal favorite.
Zack Snyder is my favorite out of the superhero genre.
No question about it.
But I would say culturally, he's pretty big. He has a diehard following.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. And we obviously, before we fucking sign off and just make everybody upset, shout out to Wes Anderson, but more importantly, Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan
is a great director who made 3 superhero films, but I don't think of Christopher Nolan as a superhero director.
Oh, no, not at all. Just in general. If we got off this podcast without saying the word Christopher Nolan, we would be shunned.
Yeah. They're as brutal as the Snyder fans.
All right, guys. Well, on that note, it's been real. It's been fun, and we didn't have anybody knock through my ceiling, so that's a good. I consider that a win.
It's a win.
All right. Well, appreciate you stopping by as always. If you enjoyed this video, do us a favor, take just a second to smash that little thumbs up button down there. And if you want to stay up to date with all of the content, then all you got to do is subscribe right here on Movies Are Terrible. Head over and check out People Are Terrible as well. We do a weekly show over there where we talk all of the terrible topics that you want to hear about. And yeah, I was on a roll there. But until next time, most importantly, and on behalf of me and Caleb, be terrible. Bye.